This is the division strategy 1 and 2, the opposite extension ladder. This is where you shorten the ladder by moving the decimal point to the left. It's the opposite of the multiplication extension ladder. The number of places you move the decimal to the left is the same as the number of zeros in the divisor. This strategy works for all tidy number divisors. Also works with decimal numbers too, and that's what we're going to be looking at here. So in our examples, in all of our examples, we're going to start with whole numbers, and when we divide them by 10, 100 or 1,000, we're going to be going into or creating decimals. But it's exactly the same process of moving the decimal point, the number of zeros there are in the divisor. Okay. First question, you win $15 in a quiz, and you share it with your 10 teammates. How much is that? So it's obviously a sharing question. It's got the word share in the question. So it's $15 shared between 10. So in this case, we would put our decimal point in at the end of the 15, because it's 15 point nothing at the moment. So there's our decimal point. And we move that decimal point to the left, and we move it the number of zeros there are in the divisor. In this case, it's just 1 0. So we're just going to move it one place along, and the answer is going to become 1.5 or $1.50. Okay, quite straightforward. Number of zeros, divisor, and our whole number has become a decimal number. In this case here, we have 17 litres of pop, and we pour it into 100 party cups, those little plastic party cups. How much is that each? So again, we've got 17 litres of pop. This time we're dividing it up into 100 party cups. We're sharing it out into 100 party cups. So again, we think about where our decimal point starts. It starts after the 17, because it's 17 whole litres. We look at the number of zeros in the divisor. There are 2 zeros here. So we're going to move our decimal point 2 places along, like so. And it's always going to be just in front of the 1 there. So the answer is 0.17 litres. Okay. Again, we had a whole number, but by dividing by 100, we've turned that number into a decimal just by moving the decimal point along to the left, the number of zeros there are in the divisor. It's quite hard to think of realistic, real-world questions where you need to divide things up into 1,000. Or divide up a small number into 1,000. Obviously, if you go into science and technology, then those sorts of things happen a lot more frequently, and you need to know how this works. But here's an example. How far is 8 meters in kilometers? Okay, so we're dividing our 8 meter distance up by 1,000 to work out what it would be if it was a kilometer. Okay, like I say, it's not very realistic. You don't really need to know how far 8 meters is in the kilometers, but it's just going to show you the process of moving a decimal point 3 places, because you're dividing by 1,000. So our decimal point starts after the 8. That's the whole number. And in this case, we're going to move it 3 places. There aren't 3 places to move it to. That's why I'm showing you how you do it. So the first time you move it, obviously it just moves over to here and it becomes 0.8. To move it another place, you need to put in what's called a placeholder. In maths, 0 is a placeholder. That's how it was invented. So you put in a 0. That means you can move your decimal point 1 more place. So now we've moved it once, twice. But there are 3 zeros, so we need to pop in another placeholder and move our decimal point 1 more time. There we go. So we've now moved our decimal point from here once, twice, 3 times. We've had to pop in 2 placeholders to let us do that. So our answer is how far is 8 meters in kilometers is 0.008 kilometers. Okay. Again, it's not a very realistic example. There aren't many realistic examples of dividing a small thing like 4 of something into 1,000, because obviously if you had 4 cakes and had to cut it up to 1,000, it's just going to be impossible. But it does show you the process of when you're dividing something by 1,000. If it is something quite small to start with, you're going to have to pop in placeholders here to let you divide it by 1,000, and that's going to give you a small decimal answer, in this case 0.008 kilometers.